Gospel of Matthew shows Jesus fulfilling the Torah with a focus on the sacrificial system, purity, and separation from paganism, each reflecting the broader context of the Torah and covenant themes. In Torah law, the sacrificial system provided a means for atonement and fellowship with God, involving various offerings for sin, thanksgiving, and ritual purity. Matthew's Gospel portrays Jesus as fulfilling these sacrificial requirements of the Torah in several ways. Passover lamb imagery. Matthew directly connects Jesus to the role of the Passover lamb, a major sacrificial figure in the Torah, Exodus chapter 12. In Matthew chapter 26 verses 17 to 29, Jesus shares the Passover meal with his disciples, but he shifts the focus to his impending sacrifice, saying, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Matthew chapter 26 verse 28. This statement echoes the blood of sacrificial animals in the Torah, which symbolize the sealing of the covenant, Exodus chapter 24 verse 8. Sin offering and atonement. In Leviticus, sin offerings were given to atone for the people's sins and allow them to be reconciled to God. Matthew's Gospel reflects this by portraying Jesus' death as a fulfillment of the sin offering, an ultimate act of atonement that no longer requires animal sacrifices. Matthew chapter 1 verse 21 foreshadows this, with the angel's message that Jesus will save his people from their sins. The concept of Jesus' sacrifice as a complete, once-for-all atonement aligns with the promise of the new covenant foretold by prophets like Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 31 verses 31 to 34, which would supersede the need for ongoing sacrifices. The Torah's purity laws emphasized that Israel was to be a holy people, set apart from the surrounding nations. Matthew consistently underscores Jesus' adherence to Torah purity while also expanding the concept to internal, spiritual purity. Clean heart and internal purity. Matthew chapter 5 verse 8, in the Beatitudes, states, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." This reflects passages like Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 16, which calls for circumcision of the heart, not merely outward purity. Jesus emphasizes that true purity is not just in external rituals but in the inner transformation, echoing the Torah's call to holiness and moral purity in Leviticus chapter 19 verse 2. "You shall be holy, for I the Lord your God am holy." Avoiding defilement. Matthew chapter 15 verses 1 to 20 shows Jesus addressing Pharisaic concerns about ritual handwashing and dietary laws, redirecting the focus toward moral defilement. Jesus teaches that what comes out of the heart, evil thoughts, murder, adultery, and idolatry, is what defiles a person, rather than external observances alone. This aligns with Torah commandments warning Israel to avoid the moral impurities of other nations and their defiling practices, Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 9 to 14. The Torah repeatedly warns Israel against adopting pagan customs and worship, Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 1 to 6, Exodus chapter 23 verse 24. Matthew reflects this separation from pagan ways through Jesus' teachings on single-hearted devotion to God. Loyalty to God alone. Matthew chapter 6 verse 24 warns, "No one can serve two masters," emphasizing exclusive loyalty to God, reflecting Torah passages that call Israel to avoid idolatry and allegiance to foreign gods. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4 to 5. Jesus' teaching here is in line with the Shema, the central affirmation of Jewish faith, which insists on loving the Lord with all one's heart, soul, and strength, setting them apart from surrounding pagan influences. Denunciation of hypocrisy and empty ritual. Throughout Matthew, Jesus criticizes empty ritual practices and hypocrisy, which are common in pagan worship but are not true expressions of worship in the Torah's sense. In Matthew chapter 23, he rebukes religious leaders for focusing on external appearances and neglecting the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Matthew chapter 23 verse 23. A theme found in passages like Micah chapter 6 verse 8 and Amos chapter 5 verses 21 to 24, where true worship is shown to be obedience to God rather than mere ritual. Matthew implicitly connects Jesus' ministry to the promised new covenant of the Hebrew prophets, a covenant that would place God's law within people's hearts, going beyond the sacrificial and ritual laws of the Torah, Jeremiah chapter 31 verses 31 to 34. Jesus' role as the Messiah was to fulfill the Torah and the prophets, bringing God's people into a renewed, direct relationship with Him. Jesus as the embodiment of Torah. In Matthew chapter 5 verse 17, Jesus declares His mission is to fulfill the law and the prophets, not abolish them. Through His life and teachings, He embodies the Torah's intent, directing people back to the principles of love, justice, and mercy, which were central to the law. Institution of the Lord's Supper. At the Last Supper, Jesus introduces the new covenant in His blood, Matthew chapter 26 verse 28. This fulfillment of the sacrificial promises of the Torah connects with prophecies like Isaiah chapter 53, which speaks of the servant who bears the sins of many. Jesus' sacrifice not only fulfills Torah sacrifices but institutes a new relationship, one that requires faithfulness to God over mere ritual and calls for the purity and holiness demanded in the Torah. In Matthew, Jesus emphasizes loyalty to God's commandments and calls His followers to a life of holiness and purity, separate from practices and traditions not rooted in biblical instruction. There is no record in the Gospels of Jesus promoting or observing festivals like Christmas, Easter, Halloween, or shifting Sabbath observance to Sunday. Instead, Jesus faithfully observed the Sabbath on the seventh day, Saturday, in line with Torah commandments, and upheld the biblical festivals given to Israel, such as Passover, as well as the laws that distinguish Israel from surrounding pagan practices. Through these Torah-based themes, Matthew portrays Jesus as the one who fulfills not only the requirements of the sacrificial system but also the call to holiness, purity, and separation from non-biblical customs that could detract from true worship. Jesus fulfills the essence of the Torah, demonstrating that devotion to God involves a heart transformed by His love and a life guided by His commandments. This commitment includes adhering to biblical observances rather than incorporating festivals or customs rooted in pagan practices, emphasizing a worship life centered solely on God's Word and His instructions.